Welcome to London and San Francisco. And with me today I have Yunus Arikan, Global Head of Policy at ICLEI. You have been now in San Francisco for the Global Climate Action Summit. And what is your take from the summit so far?
This summit is important on two aspects. One, the global climate process and the need to raise ambition. And the second is, of course, the country that we are now living in, the United States, which is the largest developed country, which is not at the federal level advancing on the Paris Agreement, and the Trump administration is rejecting to align itself with the Paris Agreement principles. So the second message is towards the domestic U.S. politics. So in that sense, if we look at the first part, which is the international agenda, this summit was announced much earlier in 2017. But at the end of 2017, we had the One Planet Summit by the French President Emmanuel Macron, which also created a huge momentum. So from our perspective, this is a follow-up of what has happened in between. In basic sense, while in the Paris Agreement, national governments are dealing with the rules and procedures of the Paris Agreement, there is a real economy being shifted to a low carbon economy worldwide, and there is a need to show this potential and the power and the future more visibly. And this summit is trying to give the message to the decision makers that yes, this turning point, this threshold is over now. The world is shifting on energy, on resources, on waste management to a much environmental friendly and climate friendly world and civilization as such. And negotiations should be inspired so that both the national implementation plans and the rule book should be reflecting to this reality.
But when we look at the place you are in San Francisco as part of US, and of course it must be a lot of people coming from US, and the challenge is, as I understand, it's between also the cities, the states and the federal government. What is the feelings about the roadmap for US, particularly related to the summit?
First of all, of course, Governor Brown, or let's say, since the federal administration's decision to step out of Paris Agreement, not maybe necessarily legally, but at least practically, and doing any action that is against the principles of Paris Agreement, there had been a huge movement in the civil society in the US, which is called America's Pledge, and we are still in. So there's a huge mobilization of cities, business, states, and universities across the whole, all walks of life, to show that no, we are committed to go towards a Paris Agreement, and even without the federal government, we would like to deliver what should be delivered, or we would like to ensure low carbon and high resilient development is implemented in the US. And I think they have demonstrated a huge success story by producing new results and new reports and new data that American real economy is still aligned with the rest of the global tendency that we are shifting our getting out of fossil fuels, but more towards a renewable economy. And even more additional initiatives are coming from New York City, like divesting from the New York City pension funds to from fossil fuels to new climate technologies and renewable energy. So in the US, there is two sides of the coin. There is a federal, let's say, strategy and actions, but there is a huge dynamic below the federal level, diversity, and of course to the realities.
As I understand it, also have coming up a lot of new reports which will help all levels of local government or regional or central governments.
Mm.
Which are the most important reports, as you can see, coming out from San
Mm,
Francisco?
mm, just before the summit, there were a couple of reports that are worthwhile to refer. The first one is the new climate economy. This is a consortium by numerous partners, but the key, one of the key authors is the Lord Stern, who was the famous by releasing this report, which was saying that taking or no action is more costly than taking action on climate. This was a couple of years ago. The new report is saying that taking action is more profitable, or taking action is much more resource efficient than no action on climate agenda. So the discussion is now changing. Couple of years ago, we were discussing whether we should take an action or not. Now, the debate is turning into a level that if you don't take the action, you are losing your economical competitiveness because there's a technology being developed. And if you're not going on the right track, which is low carbon, high resilient technology, your business, your economy is losing its future. So that was a major shift, of course, in the understanding, and that is the document that is very clearly generating jobs, generating air quality benefits. So that was the first report. The second report was released by Yale University, and they were also trying to map the initiatives of non-party stakeholders, which is the language in the legal terms, but all those other than the national governments who are what are they doing? As I said, the spirit of the America's Pledge, which is cities, business, states, and other actors. This was also demonstrating strongly that they can, if these are integrated to the NDCs, NDCs can be much better improved. And the third, from our side, the Global Covenant has also updated its annual report, and it was presented by 9,000 cities worldwide. This is a collective effort. ICLEI is also part of it, of course, demonstrating that our progress on more cities committing and reporting and acting is improving. New data indicate 1.5 gigatons by 2030. Is doable annually with the compared to the business as usual scenario. So these are the latest report. But if I would definitely recommend, if you go to the website of the summit, among in addition to all these reports, there was one very critical presentation on the first day of the summit, was by Stockholm and Resilience Center and Christina Figueres, which is the logic of exponential transformation, saying that we shifted this threshold. Now we can run faster, and there is opportunities to do this. And the more we run faster, we will understand that it is not impossible. We can do this challenge, and we can shift our economy to a new level of development.
One of the conclusions, as I understand, this report also say that new technology could reduce the emissions with up to 50% until 2030.
Yeah.
And that's a good achievement, and show that tools are in place.
Exactly.
But the question is the leadership in place?
Perfect. I mean, this is definitely the challenge here. Let's recall one of the biggest discussions here. If you can recall our previous climate summits, this kind of big gathering was always at the COPs, the end of the year discussions. And one of the unique moments in time in this year is that we're still not clear, or we don't know yet what is the arrangements, what type of engagement mechanisms will be held during the climate conference in Katowice in December, which is just around the corner, actually 2 months ahead. And there's still no information about the venue and the capacity. There are huge concerns about logistics. So the world of climate community was slightly a bit in a difficult situation, saying that what is the best way for us to show our presence and our commitment. And that summit, this one in San Francisco today, has proved that at least before climate negotiators meet in Katowice, they hear, then they feel the pressure from the rest of the society. And I think this was the most important mission of this summit as well. So in that sense, while we are of course very happy, there's also reality that this was one on its kind of a summit. There is no at the moment announcements. Maybe by today, when official closing statements are done, we can think about it. But our still goal is to influence the climate negotiators, the way they are designing the rules, and the way they revise their NDCs. So this is the main goal. The goal is not to come to summit and show how great we are. The goal is how we feed this capacity potential to the national one. In that sense, we from ICLEI side are very excited, because throughout the year we are running this Talanoa dialogues with numerous partners. It is now in more than 40 countries. So we are able to bring this discussion in California, in San Francisco, which of course was also not able to, for many people to come for various reasons. We are now committed to take this information back to our countries, to work with the national governments and to work with our delegations in local and regional governments, to say that, look, here are new fresh information, here are new capacities. Let's come to the Talanoa dialogue and let's work with our governments to make sure that the next NDCs that they will present are much more ambitious, because they are much more inclusive and they are engaging us appropriately.
So we have the technology in place, we have finance in place, and the question still is, do we have the leadership in place to have that speed to meet the realities? And if we look further on now, and the next step for you in ICLEI, and what is the agenda to speed up?
So before California Summit here in San Francisco, ICLEI held its triennial World Congress in Montreal in June 2018. And this was an opportunity for ICLEI to revise our vision for our long-term strategies. And ICLEI's congresses are every 3 years. And the last time we met in Seoul was in 2015. At that time, there was no Paris Agreement. There were no Sustainable Development Goals. There were no new urban agenda. So we had come to a new level where global processes are much more recognizing our role as local and regional governments, and ICLEI's support to its members through capacity building, networking, and tools and research, and to support the national goals and national targets has to be reworked. And in that sense, in June in Montreal, ICLEI announced climate neutrality as the biggest vision for our members, that should start at the government operations level at the earliest by 2020, and in the next 3 years, that it's not anymore a nice innovative idea, but it is enshrined in the Paris Agreement. And all our members now, because we are recognized in the Paris Agreement, we should also say that climate neutrality is a reality at the local level. It starts with the local government's operations and their services that should be climate neutral, full 100% fossil free. So this was our addition. This was our vision in Montreal. When we came here, we clarified a bit more on the specifics of what climate neutrality means. So in our vision at the moment, our guidance to our members is that it has 4 elements. One, it starts with an ambitious commitment of reductions. Second, it includes fossil-free investments, or which is divestments. Third, the money that is shifted from divested resources goes to the climate action and resilience adaptation as well. And the fourth, we should invest more in offsetting of our emissions, those that we cannot avoid because the time is ticking and we have to reduce as much as possible. And it also is an opportunity for us to generate new finance to global mechanisms and show our solidarity with Global South, but also try to make sure that climate neutrality is in practice at the local level, is delivered. So this was our vision. And we are very happy that now we're ready to roll out with our members, with the wind and the momentum coming from California. And during this couple of days, we released the first case study of New York City's divestment experience. This was very well received. We have worked with 350.org and New York City Mayor de Blasio and his team. This is giving us that how complex the procedure of divestment, but how it is doable as long as you engage with your right decision makers and provide them the tools. And we would like to roll it out to other countries and other cities At the moment, worldwide, there are 150 local governments, and we want to advance this. We also have worked on our new numbers of cities who are committing to 100% renewable energy. We are saying this is now around more than 300 cities and regions in the world. We had also connected our climate action with our sustainable procurement work. That is also a new element that we are advancing. And finally, our US office also made an interesting analysis of a technical analysis of the emissions. What are the drivers of emissions at the city level in the US? And today, actually, our final event is together with the Beijing Municipal Environmental Agency, which is hosting ICLEI ICLEI China office. Just to let you know, China is the largest delegation in this summit, next to US, and we are very excited to connect to our Chinese partners and show that climate action is across the world a joint message.
So what is your feeling that people are, when they're moving back home now after the summit, what do they have with them? What is the feelings?
Okay, well, first of all, there's a good refreshment that we're on at least we are committed and we are on the right track. We are at the beginning of this process. The Governor Brown was saying that this is a Mount Everest that we are climbing, and we're just in the base camp. Base camp zero. That was a good analogy, I think, but we have been already so there's this question that there's nobody who is discussing that. There are very interesting actors coming up. For example, we are working with the historical and cultural community. Trade unions in the US was also part of the process. Indigenous people, so across constituencies there is a momentum that is being built. So the biggest thing is that how to take this back to home. So there are so many announcements coming up. What will be the implementation? So as you remember, with ICLEI, we have been making these commitments for a long time. We will continue to do so, but the biggest question is that we're going to this climate fatigue, let's say commitment fatigue. Our biggest priority is to make sure our commitments are delivered now, and then to deliver this, we need the resources, both nationally and both globally, and the indigenous sources of the local governments, be it their public procurement opportunities, be it their divestment or pension funds, be it their national funds that has to go more towards the local action. This is now becoming more priority, and then we are still seeing a number of changes. For example, there was a new environmental investment bank announcement with the Global Covenant of Mayors. So we are seeing that things that was not possible before is possible. So for us, the important thing is to go back and to say that now there are the resources we have that we are expecting. So there's no excuse for not to take action, but there's also more and more need to ensure empowerment of local and regional governments and multi-level collaboration, which is existing government levels. They all respect each other and they will work together, and that they speed up the action. And finally, of course, next year, 2019, the whole year, we have to work with the national governments to revise their NDCs. We would like to use the Talanoa spirit to continue the Talanoa spirit along these lines, and we would like to advance on this track, saying that California was a good refreshment, a good motivation, but the real implementation is the most active, important one, and this should be at the national level, and we should reach out to our national actors and national partners and the global partners at home in the countries.
So as we see, it's a lot of question of partnership, collaboration and leadership. So thank you, Yunus Arikan from San Francisco, and thank you to take part of this dialogue from London to San Francisco.